Welcome to Poetry Lockdown Day 41. Thank you so much for tuning in. It really means a lot to see your comments, your thumbs up, all that kind of stuff. It's a crazy difficult time right now. I do want to acknowledge as a teacher, I really respect and understand why we need to do remote learning, but it's hard. And this week was obviously the week we found out for sure as Minnesota educators we're not going back in the building. So it's a real sadness, and definitely a source of consolation and joy has been listening to and engaging with the terrific reflections that students have been sharing on poems during this National Poetry Month that have been meaningful to them. I shared earlier Francisco Alarcon's poetry, Pat Morris' poetry. Another poem that many of my students were moved by and nourished by during this past couple of weeks is the one I'm going to read today, Jane Hirshfield's The Promise. I actually don't know a lot about Jane Hirshfield and her poetry myself. I've read one book of poems that was terrific. It's called Come Thief. And what always impresses me about Hirshfield's work is just the clarity of her line, her individual line, and also this a kind of fearlessness of syntax. I notice here we've got a lot of the imperative voice, and I see that in a lot of her poems, just striking. But I'm gonna read the poem and just say how it's shaking me up, moving me right now. The Promise by Jane Hirshfield. Stay, I said to the cut flowers. They bowed their heads lower. Stay, I said to the spider who fled. Stay, leaf. It reddened, embarrassed for me and itself. Stay, I said to my body. It sat as a dog does, obedient for a moment, starting to tremble. Stay to the earth of riverine valley meadows, of fossiled escarpments, of limestone and sandstone. It looked back with a changing expression in silence. Stay, I said to my loves. Each answered, always. One of the things that I love about this poem is that we kind of have like this built-in comparison, and the repetition of the verb stay, stay, stay. We start with the flowers, we go to the spider, the leaf, the body, the earth. We get this expansion out, and each of those things are really not able to remain. In some ways, those are all things that let the poet speaker down. And it's striking to me. It's only when we get to that last stanza, the speaker's loves, that those loves, and I picture them as people, but I don't know if they need to be, but that's how I picture them, as beloved people to the speaker. They're the only ones who can say always. And I'm struck, this poem is called The Promise, and it seems like a pretty audacious promise when nature, when your very body, when the world itself is not able to remain or stay, for the human beings who love this person, for them to say, yes, we will be there always. That's incredibly audacious, and I think beautiful, because um, it's like standing up in the face of everything. The love says, yes, we will be there for you. So I think you can understand why, especially for my students, this poem was incredibly nourishing during a difficult time. And for me, as their teacher, I read it. It's really powerful to think about the sustaining power of love, the audacity of love, to adapt a once popular phrase from Barack Obama's campaign. All right, I'm going to read it one last time, but thank you for engaging with Poetry Lockdown, and I hope you all have a good Sunday and week upcoming. The Promise by Jane Hirshfield. Stay, I said to the cut flowers. They bowed their heads lower. Stay, I said to the spider who fled. Stay, leaf. It reddened, embarrassed for me and itself. Stay, I said to my body. It sat, as a dog does, obedient for a moment, soon starting to tremble. Stay, to the earth of riverine valley meadows, of fossiled escarpments, of limestone and sandstone. It looked back with a changing expression in silence. Stay, I said to my loves. Each answered, always. Thank you, Jane Hirshfield. Thank you to my wonderful students. Thank you all. I hope you stay safe and have a great rest of your weekend.